In this session of the cult marketing class, we talked about influencers who I call cult light. That's because there's a spectrum of influencers. Some are pretty innocuous and are fine and are sharing information with you. And then there's what I call brofluencers and also religious/conspirituality influencers. And we'll talk about those over the next couple of sessions. But even with your run-of-the-mill influencer, you have to understand that they are being incentivized to create certain kinds of content. They are also motivated to appear as authentic as possible, because the minute you think that somebody is not authentic, you jump off their page. In terms of creating engagement, we all know that rage, anger, anxiety is all the kinds of things that are going to get people to stay on your page for longer periods of time. The other thing to bear in mind about influencers is that they are part of this ecosystem that has been created to lead people to believe having a side gig or a side hustle or being part of the gig economy is a cool thing, instead of dealing with the root of the problem, which is that we should be able to work a 40-hour work week and be paid enough money to be able to support ourselves. But this is why there are 50 million people around the world who consider themselves to be influencers or content creators, but really only 2 million of them are making a living at it. In Hoodwinked, I go into all kinds of detail about how much money people make from different platforms. But the thing to bear in mind is that this is very precarious labor. Somebody who decides to do this kind of work is always at the behest of the platforms. And certainly you see on this platform right here, the changes that are going on, and that has serious impacts to people who use this platform to make a living. But why do we buy into what influencers have to say? Part of it has to do with truth bias. And truth bias is the understanding that we tend to assume that people are telling us the truth. And in most cases, that works really well, right? You don't want to think that people are walking around lying to you. And once you start following someone online, you begin to feel like you know them. You begin to feel like they're authentic. And therefore, you want to believe that they will continue to tell you the truth. And because of the way that we engage on social media by scrolling through very quickly, it means that we won't take the time to fact check. Sometimes we will, but most often we don't. The other thing that makes for a really successful influencer is the use of storytelling. There is a lot of research about how this is a good way to get people to engage with you. And that's why you hear people on here say things like, it's story time, and then go into a story. Or you will see people talk about their parents. Sarah Silverman talked about her dad all the time. Even Mr. Beast, one of his early videos was about him paying off his mom's house. There is also the issue of parasocial relationships. And in and of themselves, those aren't necessarily a bad thing. If an adolescent, for instance, sees somebody on social media or on television and they want to be like that person and that person's a good person, that's an okay thing. It's when someone takes the step too far and thinks that the person, the celebrity, the influencer is a friend of theirs. People want to talk about Swifties. Are Swifties part of a cult? And you can make the argument that they are. But do they all have parasocial relationships with her? I would say no. And this is how you know the difference. Someone who's a fan can go see Taylor Swift, can put on the bracelets, go to the concerts, all of that, good. Someone who has a parasocial relationship with her thinks that she wants to have a cocktail with her after the show is over.